Okay, I've been using this little titanium stove that I picked up on Amazon. It's the, I think it's a BRS 3000T. It's kind of a tight, not all titanium, 100% titanium, but there's a lot of titanium in it. It weighs 1 ounce, 27 grams. When I did my little burn test at home before I decided to go, it used like 8 grams of gas to boil, 2 cups of water, and my pocket rocket used 7 grams to boil, so it's not quite as efficient. But with the weight savings, I thought I'd go for it and try it. So one of the things that is a little bit different, you know, the pocket rocket has a bigger base, so there's a rubber grommet that fits on this whole thing here. It's a little bit thicker. So when you start screwing it on, if the little plunger, that little plunger there, sometimes we'll depress the plunger inside the container there, and you might get a little gas kind of like leak out, and that happens actually with this stove quite often, and that's even with the regulator turned all the way off. I think if that happens when you're using the pocket rocket, it traps the gas in here, and you may not even know it because it's much thicker. But with that little O-ring in there, it's a little more obvious, and you can smell the gas leak out. One of the things, if you do not get this thing screwed down tight all the way, it lights funny, and I've been kind of being very careful with it, not because I don't want to, you know, if you screw this down super tight, you're compressing that little O-ring in there more and more, and eventually it's going to fail. So I guess my worry about that has caused me to sometimes not get this super tight. And what happens then when you do that, when you go to light it, just turn this on, it's like, okay, I got to turn it, turn it, turn it, turn it. Okay, now you hear a little bit of the fuel coming out. You light it, and then when you go to adjust it, it's actually like if you go to turn it off, it'll actually flare up, almost like it's got more gas coming out of it. And it's something with how that regulator in there is designed with that plunger, if this thing's not super tight. So like right now, so that's a lot of movement. Okay, it's not even coming on. Okay, so I will try and tighten this down a little bit more with my one hand here. Now let's see what happens. Okay, now I've got gas coming out. So there's a point there where if it's not quite as loose, you gotta turn it quite a bit to actually get the gas on. So there's some inconsistency there. So if you get it really, so if you crank it down real tight all the time, then the stove's going to behave like normal. Okay. But if you don't get it turned down all the way, then by the time you actually get it to light, when you go to start to turn it off, it'll actually flare up like you're turning it on higher. So it's almost like a backwards kind of a type thing. Don't know why it does that. It may mean that eventually at some point in time there's going to be a failure with this stove, with that little O-ring, having to crank it down not really hard all the time to make sure it works. I know I didn't have to crank down my pocket rocket that hard, so that's one of the things that I would say just watch out over time for this, and we'll see how it continues to work. But I think that little O-ring in there is probably the possible point of failure, because it's very thin, and you have to really crank the stove down on that to get it to work right. So anyway, but other than that, it's been fun. It's been performing admirably. I don't put, a lot of people just put the stoves on full blast. I don't do that because the particular cup that I'm using here is just the 550 milliliter Tokes cup, and you can see that it doesn't clear the stand very much. So if I crank that flame way up on it, I've got heat being wasted coming up the sides here. So typically when I use this, I actually keep the flame down, almost at just above a simmer, and just put things around it to kind of block it. You know, I've either my Z seat or my food bag, just kind of block the wind, and it seems to work just fine. The last, this is a small canister. The mid-size canister lasted me over a month. I've got 3 meals on this, and typically they do about 10 meals out of these small ones. Actually this canister will fit down nicely into that stove. Problem is, when I do that, I have no place to put my lighter, my stove, my little fork that folds up. Since my pack doesn't have any pockets, those things could very easily, you mentioned that this thing could very easily get lost. So I store my lighter, my stove, my little folding fork. It's out of it's kind of set up right now. This is what it looks like. It folds down here, just like this. Let's see. Try to do it with one hand. There's a little pouch that goes in, but it fits down in there along with the lighter and the stove when I put it in, and that way I can keep track of them. So I think actually the mid-size canister is probably the size I want to stay with. I thought the small one was what I wanted because of the weight and the convenience of it, but I'm finding out right now that I may run out of fuel before I get to my next spot that I can actually get fuel, even though that was a brand new canister. It seems like the hostels are thinning out that are carrying fuel as I'm looking through the AWOL guides. So anyway, so that's kind of a quick review on the BRS 3000T. It's still working. I do have some concerns that I'll keep watching. All right, see you later. Bye.